introduction and for the opportunity to share here at the South Florida Fertility Expo. Michelle, congratulations. Can we all just give a snap or a clap in the comments? What an amazing year you've had, and congratulations on overcoming infertility, beating infertility. And so thank you again for persevering and bringing this back. And we know that next year is going to be even bigger and better, in person as well as virtual. I'm going to share my screen. Can everyone see my screen? All right. So again, my name is Dr. Camille Hammond, and I am the CEO of the Tanina Q. Cade Foundation. Really privileged to be here today to share the stage with so many esteemed experts and advocates and people committed to helping families overcome infertility. And as Michelle mentioned, this is the end of National Infertility Awareness Week 2024, or what I would like to consider the capstone, really an event to help bring everything together and hopefully give families tools that they can use for the rest of the year as they continue to navigate this fertility journey. So who am I? My name is Camille Hammond, and I am an overcomer of infertility. We'll learn a little bit about what that means. It doesn't just mean that you became a parent, because quite frankly, infertility continues to impact most of us who struggled even after we bring home children. And also, everyone does not end that journey with a child. Some people end up exiting and they choose to live child-free for their own mental health and their own reasons, but we can all become overcomers of infertility. So I had 6 rounds of IVF and ended up conceiving because my mother served as my gestational carrier, also known as surrogate. My mother was 54 at the time that she conceived my babies, and they were my husband and my embryos. She was postmenopausal, and when she served as our gestational carrier, she was one of the oldest women ever to do that, and certainly the oldest grandmother to do that. So I definitely am connected with this space very much personally and professionally. I went on to co-found the Cade Foundation, the nonprofit that I currently run, with my amazing husband, Jason. And we have been around for going on 19 years and have given out grants to 189 families of up to $10,000. And we've got another 10 or so families that we will be awarding grants to sometime over the next few weeks. I am also wife to my bestie, Dr. Jason Hammond, mom of 19-year-old triplets. And I did mention my mom was my gestational carrier. So I was going through fertility treatment back in the Stone Age, kind of pre-Kardashian, before everyone kind of appreciated the fact that this is not personal, and that you haven't done anything wrong. Back in my day, and I think that there's still some of that today, there was so much shame and so much guilt, and people actually said so many harsh and mean things, not understanding that infertility is medical, just like so many other medical diseases that are treatable, and that people deserve support for. I'm also an advocate for reproductive equity, maternal health justice, and women's reproductive rights. I'm a philanthropist, and my real passion in this space is educating, making sure people have good information so that they can make informed choices about their family building and their futures. So we're going to start from the basics. What is infertility? Infertility is a big word that means you have not gotten pregnant within 1 year if you are under 35 years old, 1 year of unprotected sex if you are under 35, and within 6 months of unprotected sex if you're 35 or older. It is not a word that means you have done something wrong. It is not a punishment. And it is certainly not a reason for you to feel like you are, like you to feel convicted about something that has happened in the past. It is a medical diagnosis. About 1/3 of infertility cases are male factor. That means they were caused by something related to the male partner, whether it is sperm, there may not be any sperm, they may be misshapen, they may be sperm actually look like little fish. They have like a little tail that allows them to swim and then a little head. They may be swimming in the wrong direction. They may have two heads. There may not be enough liquid or semen around the sperm, but all those are male factors. It may be caused by a female factor, for instance, fibroids, which are Black women and women of color are at greatest risk for fibroids. And fibroids are non-cancerous tumors that grow in the uterus, and they can cause infertility as well as many other problems in reproductive health care. Other examples of female factor include endometriosis, which is a condition where the tissue that is inside your uterus that normally sheds every month during a woman's cycle starts to grow in other places. It may grow on the outside of the ovary. It may grow around it may grow in the belly as opposed to in the uterine cavity. But anytime you have normal endometrial cells that grow in the wrong place, it is called endometriosis. Polycystic ovary syndrome, which is a condition which causes some women to not ovulate normally. They may not have regular periods. If you are not having regular periods every month, if you may go upwards of a year sometimes and not have a period, you should definitely talk with your doctor about polycystic ovary syndrome. So I could go into more and more, but all of these are examples of female factors that cause infertility. And then the last third, so 1/3 of the cases are male factor, 1/3 are female factor, and 1/3 are either combined male and female factor, or it may be unknown. Now, just because it is unknown does not mean that there is not a cause. It just means that our technology has not caught up with biology. The same way that people who struggled with infertility in the 70s and 80s did not have the benefit of this advanced technology that we have today, which has allowed us to do a better job at figuring out what exactly has caused it. So some of those cases of unknown infertility in the future we'll have a test to figure out that this is actually the cause, and they will go from being unknown to either male, female, or combined factor. So infertility, we've talked about that. It impacts 1 in 6 globally. So if you sit around a regular dining room table, one of those people is going to have infertility. So 1 in 6 families struggle to conceive within 12 months. And that's, again, under 35. Black women are more likely to suffer with infertility. They're less likely to conceive. If they get fertility treatment, it's less likely to work. They're more likely to miscarry. They're more likely to deliver early, and they're more likely to have pregnancy-related disease. That is something to always bear in mind. Black women have the worst outcomes, and therefore we need support, and you are deserving of support. Treatment is available, and you can become a parent despite whatever the diagnosis is. You can overcome infertility. So when Michelle asked me to talk about infertility, she asked me to focus on mental health and infertility. And I want to spend a minute talking about why mental health matters. So often, when we think about infertility, we think about what is the biological cause. We think, oh, I have fibroids, or my partner does not have any sperm. And that is the only thing that needs to be considered. And I'm here to tell you that the mental health aspect of infertility does not go away even after you have addressed some of the other physical health consequences. And so it's really important to, number one, tell the truth about the impact of mental health on family building, because mental health is health, okay? Number two, support is available, so you don't have to continue to struggle alone and in silence. So some of it, so I want to also address when people used to say, "Oh, you just need to relax and then you'll get pregnant the old-fashioned way. You just need to go off on a long weekend with your husband and do what you do and it'll work." Infertility is not caused by stress. Let's just talk about that. Let's just put that out there. It is not caused by stress, but it is a cause of stress, anxiety, for some people, PTSD, for people who perhaps have had recurrent miscarriages, and even some people who haven't ever gotten pregnant, just having a cycle every month when you put all of your time and energy into becoming pregnant, just seeing that blood sometimes is a trigger for some people. It also can be connected with feelings of guilt, shame. It can impact your self-esteem, and it can certainly impact quality of life. So again, mental health is a very important part of the infertility struggle. And I want you after this to realize that supports are available and for you to consider plugging in for care so that you don't have to continue struggling alone. So let's talk about some of the supports that are available. You've got professional support. There are people who have trained professionally to assist with families with infertility. Some of them are psychiatrists, some of them are psychologists, some of them are just therapists, but these are all professionally trained people, experts that can help you talk through your feelings, talk through the things that you're experiencing, and come to a place of peace. Being at a place of peace doesn't mean that you have the outcome that you are hoping and waiting for. It's you have figured out strategies to help manage some of the mental health consequences of that diagnosis. And there are a number of organizations that provide credentialing and that also provide recommendations for people who have been specifically trained to support families with infertility. And I would just add one note here. When you're looking for a therapist, it's important to look for someone who actually specializes or has experience with families with infertility. Just like you would not go to a lawyer who dealt with medical, someone who dealt with medical malpractice if you wanted to file a patent, because you would say, well, they don't know, they probably don't know how to file a patent. You need to make sure that your therapist actually has done some training so that they understand specifically what the needs are and what the evidence-based supports are for families with infertility. Another important tool for support is peer support. And I see we have Sandra Elidor on the call. She and her team are amazing advocates and supporters. They really pour into families and women in particular who have infertility. So support groups are available for people who have infertility. And for those of you who are thinking, well, I'm not really comfortable going out of my home. I don't necessarily want people to see me. You can actually get a support group that is online, as well as some support groups meet in person. Peer support can be a powerful tool in the arsenal to help you deal with some of the psychological outcomes of infertility. And then finally, self-care, things that you can do on your own to manage your stress, help express and understand your feelings. But I would add, as you are practicing self-care, and I think everyone should practice self-care, it's important to realize when you are at a situation where you need to tap out and you need to get other assistance, you need to get professional support. And so managing through these three pathways is it's a great way to get mental health support for infertility. So let's talk about why we need to tap out sometimes and why we need to pause to get care. First of all, infertility, as we talked about before, is not a woman issue. It's a family issue. And men and women are deserving of mental health support for the journey. So if you have a partner and like me, you fail to realize that both men and women need support, I want you to take 2 seconds and regroup and just let that sink in. My partner deserves the same care that I need because he is going through this the same as me. Men want babies too. Men want children too. That is not just a female desire. Okay. Social media can be a dangerous place while you're going through infertility. So much of the messaging about infertility, first of all, is focused on women. And second of all, is not necessarily focused on diverse communities. You may go online and not see yourself and think, man, I must be really broken because I don't see myself reflected in most of the messaging online. And therefore, there must be something really different about me when it's not. Infertility is very common. So be careful around social media. And also, it can be, you can get triggered very easily. People are constantly announcing, I'm pregnant, bump watch, things that may be hard for you to ingest on a regular basis without having some sort of reaction. So take your temperature, and if you feel like this may not be good for me, it's okay to take a pause and to go offline for a short period or for an extended period. Number two, cultural barriers. Depending on your background, your family, there may not have been anyone who admitted they had infertility in your family. And when you go to your loved ones, they may lovingly give you advice that's incorrect. Not because they want to lead you down a wrong road, but because they just don't know. And they may say things like, we don't have infertility in our family. We're very fertile. They may say things like, you just need to pray. Are you doing it right? Do you actually know what you're doing? All of these things can be very hurtful, and some of them are really cultural. And you may be the one in your family that has to educate them, but it's hard to educate while you're going through. It's hard to advocate while you're in the midst of, so you may have to take a pause. Faith concerns. So often when we are hurting, if you're a person who is very connected with your faith community, the first place that you may choose to go for support is to your pastor, your church leaders, your imam, your rabbi, whoever you trust to provide counseling. And if that person does not understand infertility because they've not struggled with infertility, if they don't have a connection with the infertility community, they may give you bad advice like, well, you just need to sit and wait on God. Now, I'm not saying that you don't need to wait on God and that you don't need to pray, but I am saying if you are 35 years old and you've been waiting on God for 10 years, okay, you need to act on your faith because faith without works is dead. But you don't need to feel like because I am, for some people, it becomes a faith issue. I have infertility. Maybe God is mad at me. Maybe I'm being punished because of something that I did not do or something that he wants me to do. And no one raises those faith concerns when it comes to impotence. No man ever said, God must be mad at me, so that's why I have to take a little blue pill. No, he gets that pill prescription filled and he goes to the pharmacy and keeps it pushing. Okay. So don't start to make don't start to kind of over spiritualize this. This is a medical condition. And it no more or less. Again, lack of understanding with family and friends. If your friend group don't understand it, they may do things and unknowingly put additional stress on you. I remember when my husband and I were struggling with infertility, when we shared with a few friends, they thought that the way to support us was to make us godparents of their children. And even though I love them and, I felt very honored that they chose me to be a godmother, it was very hard because I didn't want their child. I wanted my own child, so to feel like I was kind of getting this consolation prize. It felt almost like salt being poured on a wound. And they didn't do it out of any kind of malice. They did it because they loved us. But sometimes people just don't know. Other concerns include financial concerns. Sometimes, you may not have the money to afford care. 19 states currently have a mandate requiring insurance companies to pay for some of the workup and or treatment of infertility. But let's say you don't have a job where you have benefits, or let's say you live in a place where there is no mandate. There may be a significant out-of-pocket requirement for fertility coverage, for fertility workup and or treatment, and even mental health. Many places, mental health services are not covered by insurance. And so you may have to pay out of pocket, and that can be quite cost prohibitive. And then the last barrier justifying why you need to plug in for care, in my mind, is job related. You may work at a place where, for instance, you are exposed to things that may trigger you. I had a family friend at one point who was struggling tremendously mentally because of infertility, but this person was an educator. They were with young children every single day, and it was to the point where they almost got to a point where they felt like they were losing their mind because they loved their children that they worked with, but they also wanted a child so badly. And mental health was a place where they were able to help navigate that, and they didn't have to continue to struggle alone. So I'd like to just give you some places where you can go to tap in for some of these care, for some of these resources that I've mentioned. So I mentioned professional care. The American Society for Reproductive Medicine is the largest fertility group in the world. And you can go to their website, you go onto the patient education section and look up the mental health professionals group to get information about people who have been trained in infertility counseling and in infertility care. And you may end up needing medication for some of the psychological sequela. And that's okay. If you need to take medication to help you navigate and struggle through, don't be ashamed of that. But ASRM Mental Health Professionals Group is a place where you can find therapists and psychiatrists and psychologists who can help you. Psychology Today is another great resource. I'm not sure about their vetting process, but I do know that you can do a search for therapists that you feel connected with. You should certainly include infertility in your search terms. But if you are looking for instance, a faith-based counselor, you can also type in whatever your religion is. So you could get someone, if you're looking for a counselor of color, or I know that Laura Scroy is on, she's a Spanish speaker. If you're looking for someone who speaks another language, you can include all those in your search terms so that you can find a counselor or a therapist who you feel connected with, because that's very, very important. You've got to find the right fit in order for this to be successful. I mentioned support groups. I mentioned we have amazing resource connected with this event. Filling Empty Wombs, Sandra Elidor, she's a part of this event, and I'm so grateful to see her here. Resolve, the National Infertility Association, has a directory of support groups, patient support groups. Some are led by professionals and some are peer-led. Some meet online, some meet in person. Some are free. There's a cost for some, but that is another great place to start as you're looking for a resource. Fertility for Colored Girls and the Broken Brown Egg are also two great organizations started by Black women in the U.S. that focus on providing support and care for women of color. Although they are not exclusionary, but they do provide excellent resources and tools for women of color struggling with infertility. There are also a number of great groups on Facebook, and that's all free. you could tap in, you could just sit there and observe and watch some of the posts, or you could engage and share about what's going on with you. But Facebook does have a number of great groups that focus on infertility. And then also talking with your doctor. Your doctor, your OBGYN may actually, the clinic may be connected with a group or a number of groups that offer in-person or virtual care. So peer support groups are abundant, and there's a very low cost to get connected. Many of them are free, and they definitely make a huge difference. And then social self-care. We talked a little bit about how self-care is important, regardless to whether you get connected with a professional or with kind of a peer support groups. So social media breaks can be a really effective tool in helping manage some of the psychological sequela of infertility, but also staying connected with friends. I know for me, when I was struggling, I felt sometimes like people didn't understand, and I just didn't want to go out. If they were going to a place that I thought, I didn't need to be because they may be drinking and I didn't want to drink, or, they may be doing things, and I would just decline. I declined all the invitations. And after you decline long enough, people stop asking you, and then you start to feel even more isolated. So talk to your friends, share with them about what you can do, and ask them to not leave you out, but to find things that are going to be enjoyable for you and for them. Schedule time either with yourself or with your partner that is not focused on fertility. When you are struggling with infertility and that becomes the most important thing that you are struggling through, sex, for instance, can become very not fun. It can become very institutional. Yes, we're doing this for the cause, and it can get to the point where, you don't really want to do it anymore, and your partner feels like it's an obligation instead of an invitation. And so I would definitely encourage you to schedule time, even if that time is just, we're going to go sit, we're going to go have dinner, but we're not going to talk about fertility. We're not going to bring up anything fertility related. I'm not going to think about what I have to eat or what I can or cannot drink because of this fertility. We're just going to have unscheduled quality time to re-engage and to stay connected. Diet and exercise are very important. And, um, you know, so I know that some of you may have heard about the connection between some people who've been taking some of these rapid weight loss drugs and getting pregnant. They call them Ozempic babies. There is a strong connection between weight and fertility. The there Within a certain range, it is much easier to conceive. If you are higher, if you are heavier than that range, or if you are thinner than that range, it can become difficult for both of those groups. But within that sweet spot range, it definitely is a lot easier to conceive. So, it would be helpful knowing what the goal is for you. And if you talk to your doctor, they can help you figure that out, or a registered nutritionist, a dietitian, someone who's focused on supporting families with infertility. Diet and exercise can be effective tools, and those are things that you can manage on your own. Something else that I think was helpful for me and that has been helpful for others is creating a gratitude journal. Now, this doesn't have to be something that you spend a lot of money on. You can go get just a dollar, $2 notebook from your local store. But every day when you wake up, before you put your feet on the ground, write down at least one thing that you're grateful for. When the world looks like it's against you and everything is not going your way, make time to write one thing that you're grateful for. That one thing may be waking up in my right mind. I can breathe freely. Don't get too detailed. Don't get too down on yourself to find something to be grateful for that changes the world. Just one small thing. What you will find is over time, that one thing becomes three things, becomes a whole page of things because you're looking at what's going well instead of just focusing on what is not happening the way that you want them. So I love gratitude journals, and I encourage everyone, regardless of whether you're walking down this infertility journey, to get a notebook and start a gratitude journal. And when you feel yourself spiraling and going down a hole of negative thoughts and emotions, and reflect back on that gratitude journal and start to journal again. And then the last thing I want to mention is community events focused on the TTC community. So often we go out and we go to places and we feel like I'm the only one, even though I know it impacts 1 in 6. I don't see anybody else that they don't have infertility tattooed on their forehead. So it feels like I'm the only person who's struggling, even though you may be in a room full of people who are struggling. So when there are community activities that really are making a call, come on out. If you're dealing with infertility, join us. This is going to be a day where we gather to support one another, to get information. Try and join those programs, because then you can see physically, I am not alone. I am part of a much larger community. And it can help you feel like, there's nothing wrong with you, because I'm telling you, there's nothing wrong with you. Infertility is a part of the human condition, is part of the animal condition, but you can get support. And I'm going to share a little bit about a community event coming up in June that everyone can join if Michelle says it's okay for me to share about that. Okay, great. So in conclusion, infertility is common, 1 in 6, and you're not alone. And mental health is health. Mental health is very much a part of the infertility struggle. And I encourage you to plug in for care, to tap in for care, and get the support that you need to overcome this. Thank you. And since Michelle said it's okay, I'm going to give a very brief shameless plug. We're having the Race for the Family on June 15th. It is going to be in Maryland, but we do have virtual attendees that tap in all over the world. They do their 5K or their 1 mile or their 12-mile bike ride from wherever they are. We send them out the swag, and then they're in the pictures, and we really do this to show everyone that we are a large community, and we are mighty. We are strong when we work together. And we're also going to be giving out a $10,000 raffle for treatment at Shady Grove to one of the registrants for that event. So raceforthefamily.com. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share, and I'm available for any questions. Thank you.